Hey everybody, Jill Simonian here. Cheers. We have got a very, very hot topic that we're going to discuss today. I'm very happy to be here moderating Baby League's Mommy and Me Live again. Yes, we are going to have fun. And today's topic, romance after baby. Will we talk about sex? I don't know. Depends on how tipsy we get because, yes, I brought a mimosa. Did you bring a mimosa? I'm hoping you brought a mimosa. Anyway. You need something to start off, right? Okay, so as you all know, those of you who have joined us before, this is an open forum. We give free information, free fun. We have a great panel of women that are a hoot and a half, if you really want to know, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about romance after baby. I'm going to introduce the panel to you right now, but before we do that, remember, oh, that mimosa's good. Is there champagne? There may or may not be. I'll never tell. What we want you to do right now before we start is to load in your questions on the right side column because this is a back and forth discussion. Even though we're all chatting, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think. We want to hear your tips and tricks. So tips and tricks. I am tipsy. Anyways, load in your questions right now, and let's kick off with introducing our expert for the day, Danielle from Baby Nuggets. Tell us who you are. You are a marriage and family therapist, I know, but give us some deets.
Yes, I'm a marriage and family therapist and a Mommy and Me instructor and have my Baby Nuggets with Danielle. So this is a huge topic that comes up time and time and time again in all of those forums. So I'm really excited to kind of get down to it today and hopefully hear from everyone and see how we can help everyone feel more connected.
Good. Do you have a mimosa?
I have coffee.
Yes!
Because
coffee's good.
Coffee works because my third is a toddler in teething. So all of you out there who have a toddler at home or baby teething, cheers to you with the coffee.
Cheers to you. Well, you know, you could add some Kahlua in there and you'll be all good to go. You'll be ahead of the game for the rest of us. Next we have Gabrielle. Gabrielle, hello, how are you today? Tell us who you are.
Hey, I'm good. I'm Gabrielle from GabeBabeTV, where I do daily vlogs with my husband and our 2-year-old, which is very exciting. So.
2.
And I
like
my coffee.
Crazy 2s. And coffee.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
with Irish crazy. I'm kidding. I know. I know. I'm joking. Well, you know, for the romance, you need to talk romance. You need to get a little, you know, loosey-goosey. Okay, and last but not least, we have Amy. Amy, how are you? Tell us who you are.
Hi, good morning. I'm Amy. I'm from Epoddle, and I have 3 kids, 8, 4, and 10 months. And you can also find me on Millennial Moms as a contributor.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Mimosas?
Water in a wine glass.
Water in a wine glass.
Nice.
No classic for my water.
Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're hoping you're joining us with your mimosas. Go grab your champagne, Kahlua coffee, whatever have you. We're going to kick this off right now. And the first question, I do want to start with Danielle. Oh, I should mention, I do have a 4-year-old and a 3-and-a-half-year-old, 2 girls. So, yeah, we're all kind of in that, like, toddler preschool-ish phase where our minds are like, cuckoo. But for the first question, let's start talking romance after baby. Danielle, I want to ask you, let's start at the very, very, very beginning. So you have this couple that's in love, hot for each other all the time. They get married or, you know, they don't get married, whatever, but they have the baby. And from the beginning, it seems like that relationship all of a sudden gets turned upside down and changes. Why does that relationship change the second a baby comes into the picture?
Well, the dynamic used to be between 2 people, and now you've got a triangle, right? And everyone's focus is going, as it should, is going straight to the baby. But if everyone's focus is going straight to the baby, the 2 other points of the triangle are starting to feel like, hey, what about me? And so it's a really big shift in that family dynamic. And so much changes that there's no way to prepare for ahead of time. And nobody really grasps and understands it until you've had a baby, how different it feels within that dynamic to stop going from back and forth to now a triangle. So I'm really excited to kind of get into all of that today of how to make that triangle feel much better.
And that was one of the things that I was really surprised about because, you know, the myth is that, oh, a baby brings 2 people closer together. And what happened with my husband and I, it's like we got married and then literally 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant, and then we had a baby shortly after our first anniversary. And after our, you know, it's like we've been married a year, and then I started looking at my husband and thinking like, why do I feel disconnected to him when this baby is all of a sudden here? Gabrielle, did you feel the same way?
Yes, definitely definitely felt the disconnect, and it was almost kind of immediately. It's like something just shifted, and then I had to recognize it's like, okay, what is this feeling that I'm feeling? I'm angry because I'm breastfeeding and he's sleeping, and it's like I don't feel cute, you know.
Wake up! Yeah.
Big disconnect. Yeah.
Amy, what about you?
Yeah, I think it was definitely with our first the most, because it is so hard to then go into this whole like, wow, the baby needs this, needs all the time. So that was our biggest thing, is I felt like, wow, nobody else is getting needs met, and the dishes aren't getting done, and the showers are not happening, and it just because the baby needs me all the time, even though a newborn sleeps so much, and I feel like I don't know where the time goes. Like, I think the days get shorter when you have a newborn.
Yeah, they might.
That's what I think it is. There aren't 24 hours anymore.
Danielle, I'm curious to know, when Amy, what you just talked about with like the needs, that is so true, because as mothers, we feel like our needs aren't being fulfilled. Dads don't feel like their needs are being fulfilled. As a family therapist, what is what do you tell your families? What do you tell your families in terms of how to deal with that and how to solve the problem so that everyone's needs are met?
Well, I think the first piece is being able to at least acknowledge that something isn't working, because before we can start addressing how to resolve it or how to try to repair it or how to make changes, people have to really sit down and acknowledge it and kind of validate what's happening. But it's really interesting because communication before baby between partners looks very different from communication post-baby. I will tell you that by our third, we definitely got much better in those first few months. But with our first, and there's nothing like your first baby and how it impacts everything. But it's really this piece of sitting down and having a conversation, which feels impossible because you're exhausted. And just as Amy was saying, all of this focus is going towards the needs of the baby. So I encourage couples to kind of sit down and have a designated time to talk of like, okay, what's happening here, and how are you feeling, and how am I feeling? But people don't do that, and so it comes out in these spurts of the moment of like, you're doing that wrong with the baby, and it's like all of this like resentment and agitation, and that's what the communication is. And pre-baby, they were sitting down and having face-to-face to resolve things, and post-baby, there's a lot to resolve, and no one's able to sit down and do that. So it's my first line of kind of nugget of recommendation is sit down. Not in the heat of the moment, not a good time to try to talk about big things. But like sit down. That's why I'm a fan of the early bedtime, 7 p.m., night baby, so you can actually have a little bit of time to have a conversation, because relationships are about connection. And if you don't have communication, there is no connection. So that would be my first piece.
Perfect. Well, see, that's the thing, because I'm notorious for the kitchen flyby. You know, like, you're doing that wrong, It's like, as I'm like walking through the kitchen and walking out. That's not, correct. I know. I'm guilty of it though. But so I like your philosophy of sitting down, butts in a chair. No one can move. You're going to solve the problem. That's a good one. I want to go to our first question really quickly. Princess Kennedy asks, how can you keep things interesting between you and your spouse while having a child? Open-ended question, but Danielle, I'm going to let you take the lead on that. How can you keep things interesting between a couple, whether it's emotionally, physically? Expand on that a bit.
Well, when people are dating and they're getting to know one another, they tend to go and do things that are fun. And when you actually do fun activities as a shared experience, it releases oxytocin in your brain, which helps you fall in love. So I'm thinking about every single one of my kids that I've had. I don't know if there's a whole lot of fun happening in those first few months.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Okay.
What are you
I'm sorry. Yes, having milk spraying everywhere from my breast, continuing to bleed for weeks after delivery is really sure fun. But I think it's about how do you kind of create a way to have fun. And so one of the things that we've done in our relationship is even in those first few months of what can we do that feels good, that's fun, right in the beginning to feel kind of connected, whether it's kind of your favorite show to watch together or whether it's, whatever you can do, you have to think about how to have a piece of fun in order to stay connected. And it's just something little. I mean, it really is.
Our fun was Walking Dead. Watching The Walking
There you
Dead.
go.
That was our recent fun, and now that that show's not on, I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We have to have fun. We have to have fun. Gabrielle, what do you guys do for fun? I know, it's real. I mean, it's like exciting, wild at my house, I know. Gabrielle, what do you guys do for fun?
Well, I think after we had CJ, we just went, like when we could take him out, we would just go. We would go if it was just to Target or just to go have something to eat, go out to eat, like just do things that we were doing before he got there, but it was just the three of us now. So we just made sure that we kept that up. We just go and do whatever. If it was just going to the grocery store together, we would make the fun out of that. Like, okay, you go get this while I go get this. Like, you have to find these everyday things and just make them fun, because that's really all you're doing is everyday things.
The hunt for peanut butter. Go find the peanut butter. It's a blast, right? Yes. Amy, what about you?
I think that by my third, I kind of realized that there would be a lull at the right after baby. So I did make it a point to kind of plan some stuff before we had him for the kids to do, and then also for us to do afterwards, so that they were already, I didn't have to think about it afterwards. But they were already planned, and then Eric thought, oh, cool, she's so sweet because she thought of this, and she was the one on bed rest. You know what I mean? But so, you know, it made me look good, I guess.
That's smart. I think that is one of the most smartest things. Plan ahead.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's also a key, isn't it, Danielle? I think the key is to actually putting something on a calendar so that it is scheduled. I know that some of my fellow friends and experts have suggested you need to schedule in time for you and your partner at the same way that you would schedule your dentist appointments or your doctor's appointments. You need to schedule things. Is that the key?
Yeah, I think there are two important things that you brought up. One is time for you, and the other is time for you and your partner. And I have to tell you, over the years, people talk about date night, date night, date night. I'm too freaking tired to get dressed at night and do my hair and makeup and all those kinds of things. So I'm a strong proponent of day dates, of having a family or a babysitter or a friend or somebody come over and be with the baby that you feel comfortable with. And the first moments of separation are always more challenging. I have to tell you, with the first, it was really hard to separate. And by the third, I was like, see ya, because you just feel more comfortable and you realize how important that time is for you and for your relationship. So one of the things that I feel like impacts relationships and impacts your sense of self is that feeling of freedom is gone. So I encourage people to have day dates, and when you put the baby or the toddler down for a nap, and make sure obviously the babysitter's there ahead of time so they don't wake up wondering, where are you? To go out and just walk out the front door, you know, go for a hike, drive by the movie theater, go say, oh, I want to check out this new restaurant down the street. That sense of adventure and freedom is a great way to bring it back. The other piece is you had a lot of time for yourself pre-baby, post-baby, what? I mean, moms eat the burnt toast, right? If we even get toast. So the piece of putting an hour a week in for you, it banks in your system like 15 hours. I think everyone can identify when you finally go and do something for yourself, that hour like re-energizes you, it connects you with yourself, it's like feeds you like 15 hours. So absolutely you must do things for yourself, and it's an important thing to model for your children, that you as a person are important too. I think that is such an important thing to teach our kids.
It is, and that's one thing that personally with me I've noticed. I will put off time for myself, so to speak, because everyone else's needs come first, you know, by habit. And when I do leave, for even if it's an hour, I come back more happy with my family, if that makes any sense. I mean, I come back a really different person, and my husband's like, what happened to you? I don't know. It's true. It's true. And Gabrielle and Amy, I'm not quite sure if you guys can speak to this. I'm just going to say this. I have a few friends in my life that physically have not left their children by them, you know, with a sitter or by themselves, because there is some kind of a fear to leave the kids. And have any of you, and it's like I've told her time and time again, you need to leave. You need to leave. This is for your mental health. This is for your emotional health. You need to leave. And she won't do it. She can't do it. She says she's not ready to. Have any of you experienced this at all? It's okay to say no. I mean, I did.
I think it's her first baby, right? Must be.
No, she had 2.
Oh, really?
Wow. No, and I
Yeah.
actually haven't left my smallest one very often because he has a hard time without me. So that's harder, but I am getting my own time away a few times. It's a little harder. But I understand it. Whenever somebody's ready is when they're going to go, and you can't force them because then they're not going to come back rejuvenated. It's going to be so stressful on mom and baby. So, I mean, to combat that would be really hard.
I was just curious if maybe you could speak to that. I know. If we can't speak to that, no big deal. Let's keep it on romance after baby. I have another question here from A. Pez. She asks, how long after childbirth does a mom begin to feel the urge again? This was a common question. We're shifting gears now. This was a common question among my mommy group, and we all felt completely unsexy. And I think this kind of goes with the whole identity crisis. Danielle, is there a time period where a mother should feel the urge again, or does it really vary between each mom?
Well, first off, you have to remember that the baby that's being created inside of you goes from one cell and replicates 10 trillion times to create a baby before the baby comes out. It replicates like that because of the hormonal massive surge that takes over your whole body. So once that baby comes out, your body has to work through all of those hormones. I mean, how many of you had the buckets of sweat within the first few weeks post-baby, right? Your body has to clear those things out. Now, your body, if you are breastfeeding, directly decreases libido as a way to protect the desire to focus on the baby and breastfeeding the baby. So once you're finally weaned and done breastfeeding, your libido naturally hormonally will come back up. But your libido takes a major hit with breastfeeding. So that's part of it. The other part of the hormonal piece, I always laugh when I say to moms when they're finally ready to wean, I'm like, okay, well, get ready, go shave your legs and do whatever you need to feel sexy because you're going to have the urge again. And so I think part of
Cheers to that.
I think the other piece is that you got to do things to feel sexy. And it was funny, my husband and I just had this conversation last night, and I said, you know what, for me, like, I got to go work out a couple times a week and have that time alone to kind of focus on me. It's all about me for 45 minutes, and then I need to be able to get my hair cut and colored, and I need to be able to take a shower long enough without kids coming in to shave my legs. And it's like those simple things that make you feel more sexy. If you feel sexier, you're going to be more interested. But if we don't do things that make us feel good, the urge separate from hormones won't be there. So I think there's the physiological piece, and then there's kind of the emotional piece. So those are the two things I would recommend in terms of getting that urge back.
And they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, as shallow and silly and stupid as this is for me to say, I feel sexy if I see myself just dressed up. It's like I need to put, I mean, not to be sexist, but I need to see myself in high heels and makeup, and like even now when I woke up and put some eye makeup on, it's like I feel, and this is not like, you know, the end all be all, but like I just with mascara, I go, ooh, I feel good today. I mean, it's like a totally different feeling. Gabrielle, what do you do? I want to know your tips. What do you do to feel sexy? Because girl, you're looking good right now. I mean, is this sexy, Gabrielle? Or is this
That's so sweet. Thank you. For me, exercise is one thing. Like especially after I had my son, I was like, I got to get rid of this weight. So working out and seeing changes in my body like really made me feel sexy. And I think that's why I was able to keep it up, because I loved seeing the results. My husband loved seeing the results. So it was just like a win-win. Taking that time for me and making changes and seeing those changes was great. And then also just dressing up, getting your hair done and painting your nails and just, you know, getting that feminine feeling back. It makes you feel so much better about yourself. So,
Amy, your tips for feeling sexy?
I don't know. I guess just, yeah.
We need a tip from you because you're gorgeous. I'm looking at your little thumbnail here. It's gorgeous. So hello,
Thank
share.
you.
I'm gonna
it's all fake. I have pajama bottoms on the way down. No, but I think going back to the original question, I think the amount of time it takes you to get back into the swing of things is a lot has to do with how your birth actually went too. If you had this really great, you know, not a lot of recovery time, you might want to feel the urge sooner. And then I feel like with my first, I mean, I had 30 hours of labor and some serious stuff. And that took a little longer. So I think, I mean, it was a huge difference between my first and my third getting back into it, but it also, they were drastically different. So that is something to consider too. It's not, there's not just a number, like you're supposed to feel good again at 3 months, you know? So that's
that is a good point. Here is a loaded question. I want to go again to another question we have. Okay, first of all, show of hands. Has anyone gotten caught, like, you know, caught by your kids, like mid, you know, heard the footsteps coming down the hallway as you're, you know, doing the thing? Has anyone gotten close to gotten caught and have their heart stopped?
Yes.
Good. Oh, good. We've all raised our hands. So, Danielle, the expert, I want to ask, one of our questions is, how is the best way to handle a child walking into the room and catching you in the act so that they're not traumatized for life?
I think it depends on their age and stage of development, the type of dialogue or conversation that you have. The young children, it's just going to be a form of distraction of like, oh, we're playing, like, let's play and tickle you. I mean, it's just, it depends on the age. I mean, it really does.
I'm writing that down.
You know, if my 9-year-old walked into the room, it would be a heck of a different conversation than if my 18-month-old walked into the room. So I think a big part about being parents is starting to have the dialogue. And granted, I'm kind of into that piece. You know, my 9-year-old is like, how are babies made and how do they come out? It's like, okay, so you're already kind of in that realm. So I think it just depends on the age and stage of development. And I think it also becomes about environmental control, like how do you maneuver things to maybe reduce your chances of getting caught. And then I think there's kind of this fun piece of it of like, how do we not get caught? And
I know, right? Like you're sneaking around.
Right.
Lock the door. We could try that, right? Lock the door. That's always a good tactic. Here's shifting gears again to another question. What are some of the things that you have done to help put the spark back into relationships? This question is from Natural Jam 22. What are some of the things you can do to put back the spark into the relationship? And I kind of have a list here, but Danielle, I'm curious to hear what you say about that first.
I've had some moms over the years share some really, really fun stories, and a lot of times there can feel pressure to put spark back on. So this mom was talking about on Friday nights after the baby went to bed, that it was just naked Fridays. They would get into bed both naked, but there was no pressure. But it was just kind of starting to warm up to one another and create like space for the spark, you know? And then I've had, you know, other moms who've kind of gotten really creative, which is like, I haven't had a really long shower in a while and I haven't physically connected with my partner in a while. So I'll just put those together and we'll get in the shower together. I think part of that spark is getting creative and trying to find new ways to connect. And I'd love I'm sure Amy and Gabrielle have some really good tips for this too.
Naked Fridays. I cannot get past
I love that.
I do like that. Saturday, Naked Sunday. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, Gabrielle.
Yes.
How do you put the spark back in? Is there something, seriously though, is there something that you do on a daily basis or you try to do on a daily basis to just kind of put that zest back in?
Well, I think the bedtime thing is very, very important, and I think Danielle touched on this earlier. We put Siege on a schedule. He goes down, you know, no later than 8 o'clock, and then we have a couple of hours before it's time for us to go to bed to do whatever it is. If we want to watch a show together or just, you know, lay in the bed together or just talk or play a game. So I think that's something we kind of do daily, and then we make sure we have weekly dates. We have date nights every Friday.
Wow.
Most of the time every Friday. So
that's good.
You know,
that's
it's great that it works out that way. Grandmommy is in love with her grandson and loves to keep him. So yeah, every Friday or every other Friday at least, we have that time to ourselves to just do whatever.
That is, I mean, that's often once a week.
Favor that.
Yeah.
That's
because I'm sure once baby number 2 comes, we won't have that. So.
Right. You might keep making it, keep having it. I have tried. I will tell you, I have tried sending the sexy texts, and it's kind of fun. But then at the same time, I get worried because my husband's a doctor, so sometimes he has like assistants and nurses, like, you know, handling his phone, and so it crossed my mind like, oh my gosh, like, wait a minute, someone else might see this text, so you kind of got to be careful. But does anyone try to do like the sexy text thing or the flirty text? Anybody raise your hand? I'm raising. I'm nodding. Someone's nodding.
I'm raising both.
I'm looking. You're raising both. Have you ever does that help? Or does your husband text back and be like, what the hell is this all about?
Yeah, no, he definitely does not text back in that way. No, I think you have to keep things fun and flirty. I mean, I think we've been married for 11 years, and I think you have to find new ways to keep spicing it up. And a big part of what we're talking about is that you're paying attention to this piece. It is so easy to think that your relationship with your partner is unconditional. No, it's not. Your relationship with your child is unconditional, right? They can throw a gazillion tantrums in that day, and they're going to annoy the crap out of you, but your love for them is not going to be any different, right? Well, if you are not showing affection to your partner, if you're snappy and impatient and not connected and not having conversations, you know, that affects the way you feel about one another. So I think it's like you have to pay attention to it, and then once you decide I'm going to pay attention to this, that creates some fun opportunity to send flirty texts. And Jill, I'll give you a little tip from fun texter to fun texter.
Yes.
So on your iPhone or whatever smartphone you have, you can turn off in the setting that it shows what's popping up. It'll just say text message, like that you have a text message. It won't say from who, and it won't show you the first few lines, and it won't show you the small little picture that you might be sending. So turn that off, and then you can fire away at your husband and have some fun.
Ooh, how did you know that I am so tech ignorant? How did you know? I swear to you, that is like new information to me. Everyone probably knows that you could turn that feature off.
No, I mean, a lot of people don't use it, but, you know, if you want to do some, you know, some like flirting with your partner, I think, look, I think you have to keep things playful, because you feel anything but playful after you have a baby. And feeling playful is what creates a spark.
It is. It's true. It's true. And the thing that you said, and I just want to repeat it because it really was really poignant to me when you said it, the relationship with your kids is unconditional. The relationship with your partner is not. That to me was like light bulb, reminder. Yes, you're right. Because adult to adult, the way you act does evolve and change the way you feel about one another, whereas that doesn't happen with your kid. Magic. Danielle, that's why we have you. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Happy Cheers. Hello. Okay. So, sorry, did I interrupt someone? Was someone?
No, I think half the battle is trying to let the other person know you're ready. You're in the mood. So, like having a code word or having a little, you know, like we have a hook in our closet where if I need to be changing into something because he wants me to be changing into something, it goes there, you know, and like I actually give that as bridal shower gift because I think that's a huge, you know, like it's part of it is just, and we work from home together, so that's another thing. We're at each other's face all day long, right? So knowing that that there's a code word or something that signifies like, okay, I'm in the mood, are you, like, you know, without just saying, hey, you want to have sex?
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's I think another thing too.
Ooh, the code word. Okay, I'm digging this. We got a question from Amy and Danielle. You know what? This is a really great insightful question. Danielle, does it make a difference if you had a vaginal birth versus a cesarean when it comes to your sex drive after baby?
For the men or for the women?
Let's start with the women, but then let's go and talk about the guys' side also. But let's start with the women.
I think, you know, every woman is so different, and what Amy kind of talked about, she kind of mentioned this piece of what type of birth you have and how long it goes, and if you have any kind of traumas related with birth can kind of impact, you know, that vaginal experience, or if you have the C-section, if it's like an emergency C-section, kind of that whole experience with labor and delivery really impacts kind of your perception of your body and you feel about your body and your kind of your brain. And really, did you know, you guys, your brain responds to birth as a trauma? Your brain maps it in and stores it as a trauma. So there's a lot that has to get kind of worked through, and some people on a spectrum kind of have it in a more intense way than others, and that's why postpartum is so significant. So I think that, you know, for women, again, it comes back to this piece of kind of reconnecting with your body and feeling that sexiness. I mean, having milk spray all over and sleeping in a sports bra was like, ugh. So finding like a cuter bra to sleep in, or because you have to, otherwise your sheets, right, are soaking wet from all your milk. So I think that piece, and then I think with the C-section, there's such a long recovery. They say it takes up to a year to recover fully from a C-section. So I think those pieces impact kind of your sex life. They impact how you feel about your body. And then I think for men, there's a huge variation of how men feel. I have some, you know, dads that are like pulling the babies out, and I have some dads who are literally like, my eyes are staying on my partner and I am not looking anywhere anytime soon. And that was my husband, which I ended up with all C-sections, so you didn't have to worry about that. But he was like, I just want to be clear with you, because I'm the like, come pull the baby out. And he's like, I'm not moving anywhere near there. So he will say that he really, you know, he says all the time, like, I'm glad you had C-sections, because he would have had a very hard time with the vaginal birth and how that would have affected kind of, I don't know, his visuals. What do you want to? I mean, what do you want to call it?
Yeah. Well, there is something. Yeah, I think so. His visuals and his. I mean, this is a whole other topic, but his perception of
your body
and how to, you know, where once it was perceived as this like, you know, sexy body that he wanted to, you know, and then it was like oh, this is what came out of there, and it's a little different, like polar opposite. Yeah, wow, interesting.
I know Amy has a good tip on this one. I learned it from her that she shared before. About the vaginal birth. Remember you said, I'm trying to remember your exact story, but you had some really good tips.
With Eric stays at the head because he doesn't want it to be skewed at all, and I'm okay with that. I think it's whatever he wants, because that's he's the one that has to be looking at me. I don't have to look at myself during anything.
True.
I guess maybe we should get some mirrors. I don't know, but
no.
But I'm not sure which tip exactly. I'm not remembering exactly what tip.
Oh, I think just that piece that you kind of left that space for him, which is kind of whatever he needed in the delivery too. Versus I think a lot of times women are like, what do I need in the delivery? What do I need? And you kind of left that space for what works for him and to allow him to make that choice and to be completely supportive of it.
Absolutely, and the doctor actually asked, you know, do you want to deliver this baby, our third? And he said, you know, doc, no, I'm going to stay up here, and that's okay. And I delivered actually my third, so he let me pull him out, and I loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever.
Wow.
And awesome. my husband just sat up and said, I'm gonna sit here, and I'm okay with that. I'm totally cool with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and because in a lot of cases, and Danielle, maybe you can speak to this, but the romantic relationship, sexual relationship, whatever have you, it is both people are involved. One person cannot make one call one way or the other, and that starts with the birth of the baby. I mean, it's a two-way street. You both should be, in theory, on board with how your relationship is going to be and evolve after the baby comes, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so that said, okay, so if you're just joining us and you heard all of that technical talk, we're talking about romance after baby, and this is BabyLeague's Mommy and Me Live. Hello, you know where you are. You can load in your questions on the right side column if you're just joining us and ask questions all about romance after baby, reconnecting after baby, and if you want, like, sex after baby, although we are not a sex ed course, but hey, you can ask the question, you can see how we react. One thing that I wanted to kind of ask Danielle on a personal level is, now don't judge ladies, because I still, you know, am in love with my husband, and I think he's adorable and hot and all those things, but sometimes it's just, I am just like, you know, I'm tired, like I don't want to, this ain't happening, like I want to go to bed, and that's the end of the story. Danielle, is that okay and acceptable? I mean, of course it's okay and acceptable, but I'm curious to hear from the guy's side, what you've heard from your families that you work with. Does that really, like, knock the guy down? I mean, does it really, like, knock him down if you're just like, babe, I'm tired, I can't?
I think a huge part, I think men and women to a certain degree are different, and I think a huge part of a relationship is being physically connected, because otherwise it's just a friendship, right? So that physical piece is significant, and I think in general, and I'm talking in generalizations, men feel closer and more connected, you know, with having sex and having that physical intimacy, and women tend to lean more towards the emotional intimacy piece. And post-baby, you're kind of struggling in both. So that's a really difficult recipe. So when you're getting in bed at night and you're really tired, you know, there are a couple of things that I recommend. One is sometimes you have to push your envelope a little bit, because it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, I'm really tired. And then a few minutes into it, you're like, oh, this is kind of, oh yeah,
I wasn't so tired. Right.
Right? And the other piece is that I love to kind of stop thinking about, like, physical connection only happens at night in the bed. Your baby's nap, they take a late afternoon nap, depending on people's work schedules and what things are like. You know, I think that you're up in the middle of the night sometimes after putting the kid back to sleep. I think you have to kind of remember that it doesn't have to be this in bed at night with all that pressure. But I do think for dads, again, you're giving all this affection and attention to the baby, and then when they ask for some, I think if we're kind of pushing them away, I do think that impacts the way somebody feels about themselves and the way somebody feels about in their relationship. Again, I'm not encouraging people to do something they don't want to do, but I think that it's a huge part. I think the other piece, too, is the physical connection post-baby, you know, after you, if you are breastfeeding, that there is a lot of vaginal discomfort. And I think all of us can relate to where dads are super psyched for the 6-week checkup, and moms are like, oh no. And for a variety of different reasons. So I think that, you know, look, I think we have to push our envelopes a little bit and then kind of warm up to it, but we also have to honor where we're at and who we are, so it's a balance, for sure.
Right, it is a balance. It is a balance. I want to just pose a quick question to the group. Gabrielle, you mentioned before that you have date night about once a week or once every 2 weeks with your husband, which I think is phenomenal. I'm curious to know from all, I mean, it's impressive, really. I'm curious to know from all the ladies, what is the longest period of time that you've gone without, like, a date, you know, without going on a date with your husband? And I'm just going to be saying, I'm going to classify this in saying going out of the house, out to dinner, out to a movie, out to an event one-on-one with your husband. For me, the longest stretch has been, like, I mean, there have been times where we went literally 2 months without leaving the house on a dressed-up date. And for me, I felt so much more stressed because we had not left the house dressed up, looking like we looked before babies, roughly. And that, to me, after going out, made such a difference. What is the longest stretch that you guys have gone without physically leaving the house on, like, a dressed up little date? Gabrielle.
I would actually say, like, maybe eight months, maybe, because when we had our son, we lived in Tennessee, and we had no family or friends, just co-workers. This was where my husband worked, but we had no one there. So the first, I'd say eight or so, 9 months of, you know, Chad Jr.'s life, we were together all the time because we didn't have a babysitter. We didn't have anybody that we trusted enough to leave him with. So once we moved back home to Indianapolis, it was kind of like we really took advantage of Grandma. I mean, she wanted him, and we were like, thank you, Jesus, because we had this time where we didn't do anything without him. So, yeah, that's the longest.
And do you remember how you felt back then? I mean, maybe you didn't feel any differently because I know everyone's different, but did you look back to that time?
It was difficult at first. Yeah, it was stressful and difficult at first, and then I think we just kind of got used to it. So it's like, well, it is what it is, so we have to make the best of it. But at first, it was difficult because, you know, it was just us before. So,
Amy, longest stretch without physically leaving for a date?
We've only left the baby twice, and he's 10.5 months.
What?
I know.
Wow.
And I'm so embarrassed to say that because I'm like the one that's like, you have to get out of the house, and I'm like eating my own words. But this little one has been the hardest when it comes to, he doesn't sleep, he has food allergies, we had like severe eczema, and he has separation anxiety now because of it, and so he has some medical stuff which kind of changed it, because with my middle one, we were like every month, but we also we've moved since then, so we don't have anybody, we don't have grandparents to watch kids, and we just were thinking, oh, we have to find a little teenager to watch them now or something, but it is hard. It's hard to trust your kids with somebody, and then it also is hard to, I feel badly, the last time we left with the neighbors 2 doors down, so they had all 6 kids together, and our Bo baby, our little one, cried the entire time, and my neighbor, so sweet, she's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And when our oldest gets home, I said, did he cry the whole time? She said, oh, yeah. He said, oh, yeah. And he cried the entire time. He would not stop crying and crying. And
Oh,
no. Figure out what was wrong with him, and I
Oh.
felt so bad. So I almost feel worse for the person watching them.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they'll be fine. He won't remember he cried the whole time, but she's like, I'm never watching those kids again.
Exactly. I hope most people never want to go out on a date again.
Yeah,
Wow.
so, yeah, I'm embarrassed to say. We'll go out
Don't
tonight.
don't be embarrassed. You got- Naked Saturday.
Yeah, there we go. We do have a lot of time after. We make a huge point to do things after they go to bed. So whether it be make dinner or watch a movie, you know, so, but it is different. It is different.
Danielle, what
Yeah.
is there, I'm curious, a number one misconception that people have about staying connected to your spouse? Is there a mistake that you see couples making over and over and over again that you just want to say, explain that?
I think the feeling of resentment that happens, just again, I think women go through an identity crisis and they kind of forget that the dads to a certain degree are too. In some ways, they've lost a certain piece of their partner because the partner's so focused on the baby and they're focused on the baby. So there's a lot of loss with that. And I think that resentment starts to harbor. And I think that that piece of, like, I remember being so exhausted and so tired. And I remember with our first, like, Justin would sit down on the couch because he was more of like, I need to rest and then I'll get back up and I'll do all the dishes and I'll do all those things. And I'm kind of like, I can't sit down until that's done. So I just kind of said, look, here's where I'm at. I don't want to feel resentful. I get that we're different, but your tush can't hit the couch until mine does. Like, it's just not good for our relationship. It doesn't.
Right.
So I think a lot of it is that resentment piece that gets in the way of feeling connected. And I cannot even tell you time and time again, hundreds and hundreds of moms in my groups that feel resentful for being the number one parent, but then the things that they're doing is putting them in the number one parent role. Right? I'm going to pack the diaper bag and get all the snacks ready, and I'm going to make the bottles, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And now I'm pissed at you that I just made the bottles and packed the snack bag. And
My God, that's me. Oh my God.
You know, and it's like that resentment where it's like, hold on a second. You can't be mad at your partner because you're the number one parent when you're acting and behaving in a way that's reinforcing that. So I'll tell you, when Justin took Haley out for the very first time, I didn't pack the diaper bag, and he came home, and she was in her car seat with no diaper on and no clothes. And I said, what happened? He's like, she had a huge blowout and I didn't have a diaper. He said, why didn't you put it in the bag? And I said, why didn't you? And from that day forward, I mean, the guy is a champion. He just took 3 kids to the park. He's got sunscreen. He has snacks. He has the water bottle because he is an active participant. So a big piece is like hammering out that resentment. It's toxic. It is the most toxic thing for a relationship. And realizing, what am I resentful about and what am I doing to create that. So that's, I think, a piece that leads to a misconception about partners feeling disconnected is you don't focus on that piece. It's a huge one. I mean, I hear it all the time.
Danielle, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Kind of along that lines. Well, when I was 13, I watched Oprah, and I was 13. And there was a woman on there that said, I love my husband more than I love my kids. And all of the whole audience was like up in arms about it.
Yeah, they're all like, yes.
You could ever say that you love your husband more than you love your kids. And I thought to myself, my 13-year-old self, I'm like, I get that though. Like, you have to, if you don't have your relationship, you won't have your kids because you know you wouldn't have produced them if you didn't have that relationship. And that came first. And I get that. And we've always put our relationship first in that sense. I mean, I guess not going out necessarily, but emotionally, I feel like we have always put ourselves, like, he is my favorite person in the entire world, and that's it. And so I'm curious what your take is on that from your professional perspective.
Yeah, no, I think, Amy, I think you hit it right on the head, and I think there was an article that came out a little while ago, and there was this huge response to it because this person was basically saying, I have to keep my partner one notch above my kids, and people were like, you know, this space. And trust me, like, my heart and my breath literally is in sync with all 3 of my kids. But in the first few years of of relationship or marriage post-babies, you can go through some rocky bumps. And I think you have to kind of hopefully come to that realization of our top priority has to be each other. One is the best modeling you could ever give your children ever. Ever, ever, ever. You can argue in front of them. People think you can't argue. Of course you can argue in front of them, but you repair in front of them. You show them that your relationship and that repair, that person is important to you, and that's what you do in relationships. And I would say that once we made that shift a few years in, where we always say to each other, like, we're number ones, and our kids are like 1A, like just a tad bit. It creates this whole vibe in our family. And last night we were sitting down, we were having like a serious conversation and back and forth, and our kids kept coming in. They're like, oh, you guys are like having your time, you're talking, and we said, yeah. And they were like, okay, like they get it because we've modeled that. So Amy, I think it's a lot of people really struggle with that piece, but I think that when you put your partner in your relationship first, it is in essence putting your kids first. I mean, it is because in an indirect way. You know,
and the way I feel
better. And,
and they're only home for so long. Like, he's going to be with me for the next 900 years, right? So somebody find that fountain of youth, right? I'm just waiting for technology to catch up with that. But you know, we are going to be together for a long. Sometimes we calculate like how old we're going to be when you know. But because we got married pretty young. But it just is. It is like they eventually grow up and find their own person. So. That's the ultimate goal is you want to raise them and be able to have them grow up and find somebody they can spend their lives with, and and I already found mine, so I'm glad. I'm okay.
No, you're modeling. You're modeling that for them. I think that's so brilliant and so amazing, and it creates a home full of love. I mean, it really does.
Good.
Yeah.
It's true. And I like the 1 and 1A, because that is such a poignant way to say that. You and your partner are number 1. Your kids are 1A because they're still in the 1, but they're right.
I love that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Danielle, from a therapist point of view, I mean, we all, we've all been talking, and I'm loving this conversation because, for one, I feel like I'm not alone in any of this. So we're talking about romance and connecting and relationships, and we all have our ups and downs. It's, it goes like this. You figure out a problem, you solve a problem. You find a problem, you figure it out. But are there ever any serious, I mean, really, really serious danger signs that consciously, as women and moms, we need to be aware of, like, okay, this isn't just a phase anymore. This is a serious pull the ripcord danger sign that we are going in 2 different directions.
Yeah, I think that's such a really important thing to bring up, because when couples come into my office, they come in one of 3 stages. They sit down and say, things are starting to feel off. We need to find a way to connect again. We need to find a way to work things out, right? Or they plop down and say, things have been so bad for so long, I don't know if we should stay together or split apart. Or they plop down and say, we want to split apart, it's so bad. So I much prefer people in the first stage, obviously. And I think that's the piece of what signs do you look for? Well, I would say that if you feel alone, emotionally and physically, and the worst feeling in the world is when you feel alone in the presence of another. That feeling inside is just crushing. And so I think if you're starting to sense that and feel that, where you notice that your daily communication, that friendship, that like really strong connection of friendship is starting to wane, you have to pay attention to it. If you look across that person, you say, I love that person, but I don't feel as in love with that person, you better pay attention. Because once you head down a path that's so difficult, I have to tell you guys, it's so much harder to come back. So I think you have to listen to yourself and read the signs of your partners. And I'm sure, both of, Gabrielle and Amy can kind of pipe in terms of this piece, because I'm so glad that you brought this up. This is really important. I think people are so exhausted and so overwhelmed, they wait until they're in the danger zone. And it's really hard with guilt and resentment and all that toxicity sometimes to get out of it. And then, who loses? Everybody.
Yeah, it's true. Not to be trite, but our trick at home, and you guys are gonna laugh. Wine. I am not kidding. Literally, it's like we need to open a bottle of wine. And the wine, I mean, it takes me like a half a glass, and then I'm like, oh, everything's wonderful again. And then everyone's just relaxed, and then we're back in our group. Yeah. Wine works for me. Gabrielle, what works for you guys?
Wine works for me too. Like, wine is my go-to. Chad is not much of a drinker, so he doesn't need anything, but wine definitely kind of brings me back and eases my mood a little bit. But yeah, Chad is just really good at saying what he's feeling or what he needs. Like, I just remember us having a conversation, and he's like, sometimes you may get a little moody, or you're very, very nice to CJ and not so nice to me. So he's really good at expressing, what's going on. He's like, okay, let's bring it back here. I understand if you're not feeling it, but you can't shut me out. Like, I'm your person, so you can't treat me that way. And then I see you nice to everyone else. If your phone rings, you're having this wonderful conversation, and then as soon as you get off of it, it's like, Urgh. And then I had to realize why I was feeling that way, and it went back to inner resentment. Like, oh, well, I had to do the dishes, and you were sitting there watching the football game, or you know what I'm saying? I took the dog out, and you were, laying in the bed. So I had to kind of look inside and have this conversation, like, hey, can you help me out? If you see me cleaning, can you turn the TV off and help me clean too? So that way I'm not at the end of the day looking at you like, well, why are you tired? You haven't done anything. So
right.
It's where you have to be open. You constantly have to talk about these things.
It's true. It's true. No, that's true. Don't get me wrong. The wine is not the wine is just like the fixer for the silly stupid days. That deep stuff. What you're talking about is the deep stuff. I know. Don't try to.
Yeah. No, we get it. We get it.
Yeah.
Amy, do you have a quick fix? Well, Amy's quick fix is is it just the hook? The closet hook?
And I think knowing our language of love is really, mine is acts of service, and so he does mows the lawn or does the dishes without me asking, or I come home to picked up house, it is on, so, and I think that, we've been married for a long time, so it took some time to figure that out, but I just have to talk to him verbally and about how great he is, because he's definitely verbal, and I'm acts of service, so. Yeah.
That is, you bring up a good point. That is that from the book The Love Language?
Yeah.
The Love Language, Languages of Love, or explain the different gifts of love just really quickly, because that is very poignant. You have to speak the same language. What do you know them all?
Well, I think there's acts of service, time.
Yeah.
Praise.
I think praise is one.
Yeah, praise, gifts, and verbal.
Yeah.
So
that's true. Yeah. Figure out
figure out what the other person's love language is, because you always give love the way you like it, but that's not always how they like it.
That's true. Oh, this goes so much further than between the sheets. You have to know what the other person likes in every other capacity. I love it. Danielle, what is the? Let me think of a question here. I'm loving, oh, I do have a question. Oh, I don't have a question. We do want to remind you to subscribe to BabyLeague, by the way. That was what I got a question loaded in on my comments section saying, don't forget to subscribe to BabyLeague, because we do have these Mommy and Me lives that happen every other week. And we do have, actually, oh my gosh, we're running out of time. We do have one coming up on May 30th. The next topic is discipline. So very different from keeping romance alive after baby. But we will be talking about that on May 30th. Today we're talking about romance, though. Danielle, since you're the therapist, what is your quick go-to fix for the shallow and silly day-to-day? Is there something that you and your husband do that is a quick fix to keep things connected?
Yeah, I think you have to know each other's playful buttons. And I think both Gabrielle and Amy kind of said exactly what I would recommend, which is don't harbor resentments. Sit down. If you're pissed that they're sitting over there on the couch while you're doing the dishes, turn around and say, hey, babe, can you help me? It'll make me feel so much better. Like, I'm struggling at this moment, or I need your help. Versus, why aren't they getting up, and why do I have to ask them? You can either feel resentful that you have to ask, or you can ask and have it be better. I don't know. Right. I mean, I'm more of the latter.
So true.
So, and then I think, what Amy kind of talks about, which is knowing what makes your partner feel good. What makes him feel connected to me, what makes him feel good is very different from what makes me feel good. So I think knowing that about one another, and then when the other person is actively taking steps to do those things, you feel important. And when you feel important and you feel like your needs are being considered and a priority, that is an automatic connection. And that goes beyond physical stuff. It is just feeling heard and seen and valued. And I think that is, you cannot put a price tag on that. I think that is the defining thing in a relationship, like make or break, is having the other person feel like you're making them a priority. I don't know any other way but that. I think that's like the biggest quick fix, but I also think it's like the grand, like, of relationships.
Right. No, it's true. It's true. Because the little bit, as you know, our expert, I'm sure you can attest, the little bit adds up to being a lot. The little bit, the little things, daily things add up for the long haul.
So true.
Something that, and I can't remember if someone else said it earlier in our chat or not, they may have, but something that my husband and I, that I always try to do is try, and it doesn't happen a lot, but just to go to bed at the same time, and that way, even if your head hits the pillow, and even if there ain't nothing going on that night, you can say oh, good night, how was your day, and you have the 5 minutes of the connecting and talking and chatting, so that way the next night something's going to go on, right? Yeah. So, all right, we got to wrap it up. We got to wrap it up here. We got 5 minutes. So really quickly, I want everyone, again, just like we did in the beginning, to tell us who you are and where we can find you. Danielle, our expert, please tell us who you are, where we can find you, where people can follow you or connect with you if they want deeper insight with an issue that maybe they're dealing with their spouse or family.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a private practice in Beverly Hills and in Encino in Los Angeles. I also do a ton of Skype sessions with couples and moms and dads and families to give consultations and tips and nuggets. And then you can find me on BabyLeague at Baby Nuggets with Danielle to kind of take you through each week of the first year of your baby's life in 5 minutes, my little nuggets of development. And you can follow me on Twitter, Baby Nuggets, and Facebook, Baby Nuggets with Danielle. I'm trying to think, you try to think off the list, but I'm more than happy to be available and help and answer questions in any way that I can, because the reason I got into this was really to help families feel nurtured and loved and flourish. So however I can help, I'm glad to.
Awesome. Well, you've helped us today. Oh my gosh, I've got so many notes written down. It's ridiculous. I have to go home and read them to my husband like this. Gabrielle, tell us who you are and where everyone can find you, because you've got fun stuff happening on YouTube for everyone to watch.
Yes, thank you. I'm a family vlogger. If you like watching families, keep up with me and my cute little 2-year-old at GabeBabeTV on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GabeFlowers, and also on Facebook at The Gabe Fix.
Awesome. Amy, tell us where we can find you all.
I am on YouTube. Also, my husband does sketch comedy and some vlogs and stuff, and we are Epoddle, E-P-O-D-D-L-E. And then also on BabyLeague, I contribute for Millennial Moms, and my husband does DIY Dad on BabyLeague right now.
I love it. Okay, if any of this ends up in your husband's sketch comedy show, we're coming out. We're coming after you. We're going to cheer you on. We're going to be like, hey, we won. All right, awesome. You guys, thank you so much. Oops, I just shook my screen. Thank you for this discussion. This has been a great chat. I myself have learned a ton of stuff. Just a reminder, you always want to subscribe to BabyLeague on YouTube, and our next, I'm looking at my notes, our very next Mommy and Me Live is happening on Saturday, May 30th. We're going to be talking about discipline, all kinds, all forms, things we should and should not be doing, and things that are okay to do also. All things discipline, so watch us there, chat with us there, subscribe to BabyLeague, and definitely follow our expert and panelists on YouTube and online. Find them, because everyone's got their own fabulous thing going on. You can find me at thefabmom.com, trying to keep life fun and focused and as close to fabulous as possible after having babies. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But cheers to everyone for lots and lots of romance after baby. I propose naked Saturday night. Bye, everyone.
Bye.